Hi, the topic for this video is desert season and dark night of the soul and testing from the Lord and spiritual dryness, and no matter how your denomination calls this state of suffering and being isolated from God and don't not feeling uh, God and uh, yeah. So I make a video on that because it was asked for. Um, I don't really like talking about suffering, but I'm gonna do that from the happiest perspective I can. Um, so I don't know where to start. Um, I think we are forever united to Christ, and this is the highest truth. And what we experience and know to be true are lower kind of truth. And maybe we experience separation from God. Maybe we feel like we are not close. We can't sense the presence. Maybe we feel like we don't have this fellowship anymore. And it can be true to us. Like, I don't deny your experience. It's just that it is a subjective truth. Like, it's not the truth, and the truth is not even the thing. Like, it's him, it's Jesus. So the highest truth is his person and how much he is in you and you are in him, and nothing can bother this fact. No angels, no principalities, no creation, no created being, including you, can separate you from God. And this is a settled deal. Like, you are forever close, you're forever one. And there are times when we don't feel close, and our thoughts are not about like, oh, how much I enjoy God's fellowship. And I don't want to question your subjective experience when I say that I don't believe in desert seasons. And not because I haven't experienced one. I have experienced separation from God a lot. But this is not the highest truth. It was true to me at times that I felt like that, but it wasn't the truth. And it's good to know that when I say that I don't believe in the separation from God, I say that I don't believe that it can be the highest truth about you. I can believe that this is what you sense and what you think and what is your subjective reality. And even God knows that you can sense a separation, and he absolutely identifies with you, and he's compassionate about it, and he knows it, and he deals with you knowing that it is something you experience as true. So he's like, not like, I know it's not true, why do you believe it, I don't care. He knows that it is real to you, and he's involved even in that. So I experienced this sense of separation a lot in my life, and all of them seem to be ridiculous in hindsight. Like, every time I experience this sense of separation and God just brought me out of it, I see like it looks like I have been in God even in that time. He was close to me even in that. There's no point of my suffering in that season. I have been close the whole time. That's what it looks like when I'm after it. Um, and I still don't have amnesia. I know that when I was there, it felt like real, and the suffering was real, and the sense of abandonment seemed was real to me, even though it wasn't the truth. Um, and I think that's what Jesus has done. Like, he took on our sense of separation when he cried out, Abba, why have you abandoned me? Uh, he took this illusion of separation into his death, and even this lie has died with him. So it was a big deal for Jesus. He wanted to be in this illusion of separation from God so that he experiences the greatest lie of being a fallen human. So it was a crucial thing for Jesus to experience that, and still he knew it wasn't the truth. Like, he still said, "To your hands I commit my life. I still trust you. Like, I still know that you are there. You are waiting for my soul." um, but he also experienced the fullness of this illusion. Like, I felt like you abandoned me. um I don't know how it happened, but I'm sure that it wasn't an actual abandonment there. um so a lot of people who are great theologians talk about it, so it's not like something I discovered or, or anything. Um, so even in my life, I experienced separation quite a lot. Like, as a child, I was quite like depressed and sad, and every now and then I had like testimonies with God, but I always felt like he was far away from me, and even if he answered my prayers, I felt like I'm not good enough for him. So it's like my whole childhood was a desert season, if you want to call it that. At around 12, I met God, and I was like, wow, super excited. And there were a lot of good happenings there. And after that, this was over, and there was a season of like depression, and I was just longing for that season to come back when I experienced God. And even when I started to experience God again, and at 21, and I had a great encounter, I still and I started to have a lot of encounters, like great experiences with God. I still felt like in between those great experiences that I'm abandoned by God. I'm not close. I left him. I don't love him anymore. What's wrong with me? What have I opened up the door to? Or like, what is going on? I have fallen out of this relationship with him. Like, I was still having these sense of abandonment things. Um, None of them were true, but they seem to be true to me. And actually, the time when I feel good and close to God, even in between my great experiences, is only happening since last year. So it's not, it doesn't have such a long history. And before that, I had this roller coaster kind of thing with God. Like, I felt close to him. I felt like, oh, we are doing good. We are on the same team. And then I've done something wrong, and then I felt separated, and then I was like depressed. I had this special kind of spiritual depression when I felt like um, I can't be as close to God as I want. I experienced something amazing in God's presence. This is what I want. I want it to last forever. Why I can't keep it? And of course, you can't keep it. It's all by grace. It's not something you do. But I didn't know that. So I was like, what's wrong with me that I can't be in it? I know it's possible to live in this, but why can I not do it? So yeah, this was this kind of it wasn't the same depression as I used to have as a teenager, but it was like still had this sadness about my relationship with God. And there was a season when I actually had to stop like spending time with God, because every time I sat down I felt like I'm a failure. I can't feel anything, I can't sense him, and I can't love him. And yeah, so I had this like other depression in another package kind of thing when I was depressed about how I experienced God, or how I didn't. And it was pretty bad. So I had amazing encounters with God, and in between those amazing visions, I felt terrible. And I need to say that because I have amazing videos from that season, like you couldn't tell. At the moment I switched on the camera, God was speaking, and no one knows that I was feeling terrible. And sometimes I was like ministering to like hundreds of people at one night, and I went home like completely empty, almost wanting to die. So it's like having it's having great gifts and having a renewed mind so that you can enjoy life are completely different things. Like you can't have one without the other. And yeah, it wasn't the truth, but I have been there. I couldn't do it any other way. I wanted to get healed. I was on my way of healing. I wanted all of God. I spent all my time with him. There were some like steps I had to go through. Like my friend of mine, I really hated him when he said that. You need to go through this. Like go through what? Go through all this suffering? And now I understand that yeah, there were these lies and things I had to face. Like, okay, I still feel abandoned when I don't feel him. The lie is that my feelings are the presence of God. It is not okay. So, and I had to go through it over and over again. And then I believed it again, and then I believed it again, and it feels like there were years when nothing really happened. And now looking back, I know that there was a lot of things going on. That, like there were so many things going on. Like God was allowing me to like try to do things on my own, and then I faced that I cannot be close to him, I cannot climb up, and then he picked me up again, and I felt amazing. Then I started to control it again, and I felt terrible again. Then he said to me like he's close, he will never leave me, and slowly I started to grasp it, but very slowly. I'm reading my old diaries, and it is so much fun. Like there are so deep conversations with God, with a lot of revelation, and I remember I was like feeling completely abandoned by God when I was writing it. And now it feels like it is the most inspired thing I've ever read. Like this is full of God. and I was like suffering when I was writing, and I felt like God is not close. So yeah, sometimes we are like upset when great ministers like they start to drink and leave their partners and cheat on their partners and things like that. And we are like, oh, we didn't know that they were doing bad because it felt like they are so glorious. And I'm like, oh yeah, you can be glorious and messed up at the same time. Like, not because I have not because I have ever been that big thing, but I knew this situation when God is working through you and you are like, you are terrible. You are doing terrible. Yeah. So there were these times of like dark nights. Um, the way out of this is letting go and trusting, and who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? This is the thing. Like, you kind of like try to do different things, try to make yourself feel okay, try to come up out of this like bad feelings and thoughts, and when you give it up, you feel like you're already on the way out. When I started to like seek God, I was like super depressed every time I didn't feel something I wanted to. It's like when you give all your time to God, it's like I haven't felt God in 2 hours. It feels unbearable, and like 2 weeks is like, oh, will I have spent all my life without God? Like it's when you give all your attention to it, like everything is just magnified. And this is what happened to me. And also when you like give all your attention to like being with God, it's like you encounter a lot of resistance, like, and mostly from your own thoughts and all feelings, like all the lies and all the bad things, all the twistedness you carry because of your upbringing, because of your whatever hurts and imaginations and all that. Um, these are the things that will like jump into your face. Like they will, you need to face all of them because you have given this whole thing to God, like all your time and all your attention, and He's like, okay, I want to be deal with this and this and this, and a lot of like bad things come up, and it's okay. It's still the work of the Holy Spirit. But we feel like we're doing so not well, and we have to something wrong, and God is not close, and He's like, I'm in it. I'm the one who brought it up. Like, chill out. I'm healing you. And also, it was hard for me to like have great experiences and then going back to my normal life. Like, I have just seen heaven, and should I just like cook a lunch? Like, is it that like? And I had this like, yeah, this other kind of depression. Like, I know I can watch it. I can watch the colored version of this film. Why I have to watch it now black and white? Like, it doesn't make sense for me. And of course, there is a ridiculous concept of like separation, like God is in that and God is not in that. But I didn't know that. I felt like I'm separated because I have to do everyday things. So I had to go. My friend was right. I really have to go through facing these lies and renewing my mind and letting God telling me His truth over and over again. And slowly, very slowly, I started to grasp it. And like grasp it, like when you grasp it, it is automatically manifested. Like His word does what it is sent for. So it's like when you really have a revelation, it is like automatically bears fruit. So when you really know it, it's it has transformed you already. And it's different from like knowing it intellectually. But God didn't spare the time. He repeated these truths over and over again. Every time I didn't feel Him and I was like depressed about it, He just kept telling me like, this is a lie you need to go through. I'm always here. You don't need to feel me to be here, and things like that. Yeah. And I think God never gives desert seasons. Like I have experienced them because of what I taught and because of all the messed up like thinking and all the lies in my head. So my experience of abandonment was real, but it wasn't real and it shouldn't happen. Like it's not something like God was intended for me. Like this harsh depression in my teenage years, I'm so sure that God wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna teach her a lot of things through this. I'm gonna clean her with depression. Actually, depression wasn't cleaning me at all. Like, because of my sadness, I was turning to more and more sin. So it's like you are created for joy, so you must find joy in some way. And you, if you can't find joy like the normal way, you just try to squeeze it out from something. So the suffering wasn't cleaning me for sure. And I think it doesn't clean anyone. But it can happen that when you experience suffering, you just let go and you are just forced to trust God, and you experience a lot of freedom from things you could have let go earlier, but you didn't do it. But now that you are forced to do it because of your suffering, you experience the freedom coming from it. And it's so great. It feels so great that we think that, oh, it was the suffering that cleaned me. No, it wasn't. It was you giving up and trusting God. But yeah, God is good enough to be in the very center of the enemy's plans, and He's so involved in our lives. Like He is in the inside of our lies and stupidity and everything, and He is good enough to make things work out as if it was Him all along. But it wasn't Him who started the bad stuff, but He makes it bear so many good fruits, the suffering, that it can make you think that, oh, God was so much in it, like it must have been from God, the whole thing. And this is where we miss it. Like this is where we start to have God less good than He is. Like, oh, maybe there is some darkness in Him because He gave me this depression to clean me, to teach me things. And no, He was cleaning me. He was teaching me a lot of things, even in that. And now it feels like I have more positive fruits of my depression than negative. Like God has turned this whole thing around. I have a lot of people, and I have such self-awareness, and I know myself and how I work so much, just because of my depression. And it can make me think like, oh, maybe it was from God. And there was a point when I was playing with this thought, and I felt like, oh, there's a big fat no to it. Like, God has never had a single bad thought about me, and planning out to give me depression would be kind of a bad thought. Yeah, so he just doesn't do abandonment, doesn't do suffering. Just, it's not like the end sanctifies the means. I don't know whether you have this saying in English. We have it in Hungarian. It's not like the purpose is good enough so that God can use any tool to make it happen. Maybe you use it like the end justifies the means, maybe. So yeah, it's not God. He just doesn't do that kind of thing. And even if we experience some good side effects to our suffering, it's the proof of his goodness, contrary to what the enemy wanted to do to us. And it's not a fruit of like, he's kind of good so he can do bad stuff and make it do. He does bad stuff to do good stuff, and it can get all mixed up. Yeah. Some of the middle-aged mystics were quite messed up on that. Like, I love reading mystics and nuns. They are amazing how they experience God, and this whole passion thing they have with God, like the spousal thing. Oh, I love it. And they have such an understanding that they are the bride of Christ, and yeah, I love them. But they are terrible on suffering. Like, they talk about, like, they ask God for suffering. They want to suffer really bad. They want, they think that suffering is the thing that cleans them up, and it's not. It was the salvation by Jesus that cleaned you up. And even if the suffering forces you to let go of some of the crazy things that aren't good for you, it's still not the suffering that does you good. It's your letting go and your facing the truth does. Yeah, so they are very much into suffering, and I'm like, it's the other way. Like, I know what it's like to suffer and love suffering and going down even more into this spiral. And I know what is at the bottom of this spiral. I have been there. Okay, I hated my life. It's the other way. Like, God is like, you're forever united with God, and you're seated on heavenly places, and you are completely forgiven, and you are completely free, and you can have all my joys, and we can tend to that truth, or we can go the other way and make suffering our savior. And many times these mystics, with their incredible experiences with God, they died like very young, many of them, because they made themselves suffer so much that their health couldn't like keep up with it, and they died like in their 20s or something. It's like, it's surely not the will of God to kill yourself with your stupid idea of like God is into suffering only or mostly. Um, so it looks absolutely ridiculous to me, but people absolutely um, accept it. Like, oh, this was a higher goodness of God, this other kind of goodness that can be bad, but for the sake of good. Like, God works in mysterious ways, and it's like, okay, like then you can justify terrible things with like this mysterious thing. Um, so it can happen that we like spiritualize like mental illness, and we call it like spiritual names like desert season and all that. And sometimes I talk to like Christians like that, and I'm like, you are in it in the last few years. You need a treatment, okay? It's not a spiritual thing. Um, yeah. Like so for me, it's like, of course, you don't need to like take medications because you don't feel God, okay? It's not like I'm for that kind of thing, but I know that it's it's an option for many Christians, like to like close their mental illness and bad experience with bad spiritual um, expressions, so that they feel better about their state. They even feel like more spiritual than the others, and they are just simply allowing the enemy to cause harm to them, and without any point. So it's quite dangerous to love suffering, because then you open yourself up to it. Um, I hang out with Catholics a lot, and this is why I make this video. Um, they have these concepts many times. Um, so when you open yourself up to suffering, you are open to it. Like the enemy is like, okay, we have a free ticket, we can make her suffer. Um, and many times we experience God as good as we think Him to be. So it's quite dangerous to see Him less good, because it can lead us experiencing Him less good. Not because He changes, but because our experience can depend on our beliefs. So if you believe that you can, He gives you like a lot of suffering, is it can make you experience that, and you can feel that it is justified. Oh, it's true. Because I that's what has happened to me, and no, it's not. You made it happen with your belief. Um, yeah. So even if I really love the mystics and love reading them, their poetries and things like that, um, there is a point when I have to say that it's so good that they experience that much closeness to God, contrary to their very bad image of Him. It's a miracle that they could experience God that much with that terrible picture of Him. So it's really good, but there is a point when I read them and I'm like, God is not like that. God doesn't give you suffering. He is not the author of suffering. Jesus has died to set you free from all the suffering and from all the terrible things of the enemy, and we need to set our bars that high. Like, Jesus has redeemed us from all the terrible things from the enemy, and now we can live joyful, happy, and free, and completely free of all the sickness and all the abandonment. And many times we experience like bad things, and we try to lower the bar of truth. Like, okay, maybe God just wants us to suffer every now and then. Maybe we should take part in Jesus's suffering a little bit. Like, we just try to lower it so that it matches our experience. But this is something we shouldn't do. Like, let the truth be as high as possible. He has set us free from all kinds of miseries and all sins and all sickness and all symptoms and everything. And let our minds be renewed to this truth. Like, okay, I experienced something very different, but my lack of experience of this truth is not a reason for like building down this truth. It should like motivate me, like, okay, my mind has to be renewed even more so that it can experience God as good as I believed Him to be. And sometimes it takes some time to like discover who I am and who I am not. Sometimes it takes some inner healing to realize like, okay, that part of my thinking is twisted. It doesn't align with the truth. I need to face it. I need to let God into it and let God's love like transform this part of my being. But even if it happens, and even if it takes some time, even if it's like hurtful at times, letting go of all our favorite lies that destroy us, this journey is like a positive one. Like, even if it includes some kind of suffering of like letting go and realizing and facing, it's a good kind of suffering. Like, it's not like the one that, oh, I need to get more and more and suffer more and more of the suffering so that I can get clean. It's like, I'm realizing the truth, and all that doesn't align with the truth is being ripped out of me, and it is a joyful process actually. So it's like it was hard for me at times, like the beginning of this renewing of the mind to this high truth that I'm completely free of depression, I'm very close to God, there's nothing I can do about it. It took some time to like actually feel that, but it was still like a joyful thing. It was a hopeful thing. I knew that God is taking me somewhere. Yeah. So suffering wasn't for suffering's sake. It wasn't more about like, because you cling to this lie, it hurts. Um, every time we believe less than this highest truth, it hurts us. It causes so many damage. And then we say that, oh, maybe God gives me that hurtful things and causes that damage to me. And no, He isn't. Or lack of belief causes it. Like, my people perish because of the lack of knowledge or something like that is written in the Bible. I try to translate the Hungarian into English, so it might be different. Um, so yeah, because we know less than the fact that Jesus has taken all our suffering and destroyed it, that's why we experience less than that. But the reason for suffering is not that the truth is less good than the everything is fine. It's us believing and knowing less than this that makes us experience less. And that's why the way out of suffering is not like um, asking for more suffering to clean us up. It's allowing God to renew our mind to this very high truth. God is not into the pain business. God has created Adam and Eve for Eden, which means pleasure. So that's what He had on His mind about humanity. And suffering was nowhere in His thoughts. And now that we are redeemed, there is nowhere in our there's no suffering in that plan. Like, Jesus has died to take on all of our suffering. It was instead of us and for us and as us, and not like there's this idea that there's some there's a part of His suffering that we have to suffer, like we have to fulfill His sufferings or something like that. I don't know how the Bible says it. There's a verse on that. That we need to suffer what's left of Christ's suffering, and a lot of people think like that, especially the mystics, and we need to be. I think it is something that we need to be harsh on. Like, God doesn't want us to participate in the suffering. Like, it was us who caused the suffering, and He was the one taking it up instead of us. Like, it's not like He gives a little bit of suffering, He takes the most of it. He gives a little bit of abandonment to us, He takes the most of it. It's like He has taken it all for us. Like, that's the point in redemption, that it's not you who suffers, there's someone else who suffers for you so that you don't need to. And yeah, so it's like there's nothing left for us to suffer. We can suffer if we want to. um desert season is something where God can teach us a lot, and it's mostly what he teaches is that we can trust him. So the times when I felt like I'm very far away from God, I don't feel him close and all that, the point when I could like get out of it was that I was so frustrated, I was so fed up that finally I gave it up, and God was just like, oh, I was waiting for you to give up, I'm about to catch you and take you out from here. Um, so even the most suffering glorifying mystics say that this dark night of the soul is the night of faith, when you don't trust your emotions and thoughts, you just trust God and believe that he's going to take you out. And I experienced that a lot. Like, I tried everything to make myself feel close to God, and it didn't work. And when I was like super frustrated, God just picked me up and led me out of it. So it's like there is a way out of the desert, and it is the leaning on the beloved. Yeah, I love those times when I was forced to trust him. It was like all of my control things didn't work anymore. I was quite kind of a control freak, even in my relationship with God. Okay, this is the real deal, then I'm really gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna invest all my time and attention, and I'm gonna get the close relationship with God. And it didn't work at all. Yeah, and I came to the point when actually God told me to stop like spending time with him, because I was so frustrated that he said like, oh, it's not me anymore. Like, this sense of frustration is absolutely not me. And there are experiences when you experience some kind of hurt. What a choice of words. So there are like manifestations of the Holy Spirit when it that are almost close to the feeling of pain. For example, when I felt like I'm on the cross and I experienced like the scars of Jesus, or there were times when there was such a power on me, like I was almost feeling like smashed to the ground, and it can be called pain, but I don't want to call it pain, because then we like spiritualize pain and we say like, oh, all the pains I feel, it's like from God, and then we give permission to the enemy to cause our pain in the guise of spirituality. Because these kinds of pains, like, they are not like, they don't weigh you down when it's from the Lord. They are liberating, they are joyful. There is like yeah, there is a sense of love to it. And even if it's like God showing you something of the cross, like even if something brutal happens in a spiritual experience, it's it still shouldn't be about the suffering. God just shows you something intense. But even if I felt like I'm on the cross, I felt mostly the joy of it, and mostly the passion and love of it, and and a tiny bit of pain or something. I don't know how these things work, um, but it's something you need to be careful to like accept pain and suffering it as something like a spiritual discipline or a spiritual gift. Um, and I don't want to judge anyone's experience. Um, so as long as it is out of love and you feel um, free in it and light in it, like it's okay for me, even if it's painful. But be careful whether it weighs you down, because if it weighs you down and makes you depressed, it's most likely not from the Lord. And it can be that most of the experience is from the Lord, just a tiny bit of extra hurt that is like something you shouldn't take. Um, there was a time when a friend of mine was like having a breakdown and leaving the Lord and leaving everything, and he was just devastated, and my heart broke for him, and I was crying for him, and I felt like God was crying with me, and I was just praying for him, and it was so good. It was sad, but it was good. And in the next few weeks I felt like I have to feel the sadness of the Lord over this thing. And then I was like weighed down for weeks. And I felt like it's spiritual because I'm grieving with God, and I'm praying for this guy, and it's a kind of intercession when I feel God's pain. And looking back, I'm like, maybe the first crying with God was like something like authentic and something like, yes, God has overwhelming emotions, so we experience this thing together and how much he loves this person and all that. And this way down season afterwards, it's something where the enemy used my desire to like experience God in whatever and loving this guy uh, to make me accept suffering. And I know what it is like to like love suffering and going down the spiral of like um, pain, because I have been depressed for a long time. So it's like um, it was like a flashback into my depression. Like when it was over, when I was in it, I felt like, oh, it's from God. It's a special kind of love. It hurts. And when it was over, I felt like, oh, it was the enemy who tried to kill and steal and destroy. Like it's something I shouldn't have like said okay to, or yeah. So I don't want to judge anyone's experience, as I said before, but be careful because it's not all black and white. Like maybe a part of it that is like good can be mixed up with a little bit of lie. Like, um, for example, when you feel desire for God, like it can be very intense, and you are like desperate for him, and you want all of him, and you want more, and everything you experienced before is nothing, and you're just like, wow. And I know that feeling, and I know it when it's hopeful, like God wants to show more of him, and he's preparing me for that, and I'm so excited what he's going to show of himself. And there were times when I was like depressed, and I was like, wasn't enough what I experienced. I need more of God, and I don't know how to get it, and I don't know. And it was kind of a, there was a sense of lack, a sense of abandonment, a sense of like a sadness to it. And maybe this part that was about like I want him was good, but all those other feelings of sadness and all that wasn't from God at all. So it's like even your best revelation can be twisted by and can be like aligned with an old lie you have, or an old bad thinking pattern you have. Like, I had this like victim mentality and like God not showing off no matter how much I want him had been mixed with it. Like, oh, I'm so desperate and he still doesn't come. And you need to be careful because there are a lot of desert seasons we create for ourselves. Like, and it's not like you need to blame yourself. Just get out of the blame game. Don't blame God, don't blame yourself, don't blame others, don't blame the circumstance. When you find yourself all of a sudden in a desert season when you don't feel God and you feel like you suffer, just don't try to find a cause that hard. Of course, when the Holy Spirit shows you, it's great, but don't be like on this mission to find what is wrong with you. Probably nothing is wrong with you. You're just in it, and God is about to get you out of it because He hasn't created you for that. And sometimes there is no reason behind it. Like, sometimes I have an amazing day and I wake up the next day and I feel like God has left my life and 10 years of fellowship with God had been cut out of my life with all its fruits. And first, when I experienced that, I was panicking, like, oh, I don't feel it, and I don't get what I'm used to. And now I'm like, okay, I have my time with God, even if I don't feel anything, and then I continue doing my stuff, and I just trust that He is there, even if my feelings are all over the place. Actually, your feelings and thoughts and your reactions to God are not the presence of God. It's not. It can reflect in them, but it can be reflected in them, but it's not a condition of the presence of God for your feelings and thoughts and reactions to be okay. Yeah. And you need to be aware of it, because the enemy tries to like talk you out, like, oh, because you don't feel that, you don't sense that, you are no longer in it, you have left God, God has left you, you're not close anymore, you're out of grace, you have fallen out of something, you opened the door to something, whatever. And when you believe it, you're getting lower, like, oh, I'm really doing wrong, I am really not close, like. And when you believe it, you have all of it, and then you are going down the spiral. Yeah. And I have done these things so many times. Like, I have gone into this dead-end streets, like, over and over again, making myself suffer a lot. So yeah, suffering is not from the heart of God, and it is not His intention, and it's not His tool to purify you. Even if you find yourself in suffering, in any kind of suffering, He is with you, and He is he is humble enough to jump into the depths of the enemy's plans, to be with you there and to lead you out of there. He goes into the desert, okay, so that you can lean on him and he can lead you out. So he is absolutely in your darkest sense of the abandonment. But you need to know it's nothing more than an illusion. That your mind and feelings and all that project around you, and the truth is something way higher. And the truth is that you are forever free of all of the suffering and abandonment, and your dark season is only the result of believing less than the truth. And it's okay. You don't need to blame yourself for like, oh, I have fallen into this trap again, and oh, I'm so bad. It's like I'm at where I'm at. Like I can't fake like knowing it more. Like this is how much I know this truth at this point, and God also knows it, and He helps you in it. So you don't need to expect yourself like you shouldn't have like great expectations from yourself. Like even if you are like very much involved in a lie and you are very addicted to it, like give yourself grace at least as much as you would give to someone else. um and say that, okay, this is where I'm at, and God is healing me, and God is leading me out of it, and I know that this is gonna be good at a point. And I need to tell you that this is really going to be better. Like even if the first, like facing the lies and facing the things that are like contrary to the truth can hurt and it can be uncomfortable. This After a while you will have so much less hindrance to experience this presence that has always been there in your mind, that you will feel way better. Like even your subjective experience will match and start to match more and more this truth. Um, and I don't say that, oh, I'm there, like I've reached everything I ever wanted. It's like I can say to you that now, even if I have this some sadness or dark season or some suffering, I'm like, it's gonna end. It is not something that is meant to happen to me. I don't know the cause, but I know that redemption is redemption even from that, what I feel now. And I'm gonna trust this perfect salvation and trust that it is even true about my current situation. Um, and even if this process of renewing my mind takes some time, I'm gonna enjoy this process with God, and I know He's gonna be in me and with me throughout the whole journey. And even if I start to fall back into the spiral of like, oh, of suffering, He's gonna catch me again, and He's gonna teach me how to like lean on Him, and I know that He's gonna take me out of this desert. that's how much I wanted to share on suffering in Dark Night of the Soul. I wish you experience the fullness of freedom and union with God. God bless you.